What were some of the most significant achievements of the ancient Egyptians, and how did these accomplishments impact the world as we know it today? The ancient Egyptians were a highly advanced and innovative civilization that made significant contributions to many fields, including art, architecture, medicine, astronomy, and mathematics. Here are some of their most significant achievements and their impact on the world as we know it today. 1. Pyramids. The ancient Egyptians are perhaps best known for their monumental pyramids, which were built as tombs for the pharaohs. These structures remain some of the most iconic and recognizable in the world, and continue to inspire awe and wonder among people today. 2. Hieroglyphics. The ancient Egyptians developed a system of writing known as hieroglyphics, which used pictorial symbols to represent words and concepts. This system of writing was incredibly sophisticated and allowed the ancient Egyptians to record their history, literature, and beliefs in great detail. Today, hieroglyphics are studied by scholars and historians around the world, and continue to offer insights into the culture and history of this fascinating civilization. 3. Medicine. The ancient Egyptians were pioneers in the field of medicine, developing innovative treatments for a wide range of ailments and injuries. They were skilled in surgery, dentistry, and pharmacology, and their medical knowledge and techniques were passed down to future generations and influenced the development of modern medicine. 4. Astronomy. The ancient Egyptians were also skilled astronomers, using observations of the stars and constellations to create calendars and predict astronomical events such as eclipses. Their understanding of astronomy was highly advanced for their time, and laid the groundwork for future developments in the field. 5. Mathematics. The ancient Egyptians made significant contributions to the field of mathematics, developing sophisticated systems of measurement and calculation that were used in a wide range of applications. Their understanding of geometry and trigonometry, for example, was instrumental in the design and construction of the pyramids. Overall, the ancient Egyptians made significant contributions to many fields, and their achievements continue to influence and inspire people today. From the pyramids to hieroglyphics to medicine and astronomy, the legacy of this remarkable civilization lives on in many ways. Some text goes here. How did the Nile River shape ancient Egyptian civilization, and what were some of the key ways in which the ancient Egyptians interacted with this important natural resource? Some text goes here. The Nile River was a crucial element of ancient Egyptian civilization, and played a central role in shaping the culture, economy, and daily life of the people who lived along its banks. Here are some of the key ways in which the Nile River impacted ancient Egypt. 1. Agriculture. The Nile River provided a steady source of water for irrigation, allowing the ancient Egyptians to cultivate crops and establish a stable food supply. The river also deposited rich sediment along its banks, providing fertile soil that was ideal for agriculture. 2. Transportation. The Nile River was a major transportation route for the ancient Egyptians, allowing people and goods to move easily up and down the river. Boats and barges were used for both transportation and trade, and the Nile played a crucial role in facilitating commerce and exchange between different regions. 3. Religion. The Nile River was revered as a sacred natural resource by the ancient Egyptians, and was associated with many of their religious beliefs and practices. The Nile was seen as a source of life and fertility, and many religious ceremonies and rituals were conducted along its banks. 4. Floods. The Nile River was also known for its annual floods, which occurred when the river overflowed its banks and deposited nutrient-rich sediment onto the surrounding land. While these floods could be destructive, they were also a key element of the agricultural cycle, and helped to sustain the ecosystem of the region. 5. Architecture. The Nile River was a key factor in the design and construction of many ancient Egyptian buildings and monuments. Many of the most iconic structures, including the pyramids, were built with stones quarried from the river valley, and the river played a critical role in transporting these materials to their construction sites. Overall, the Nile River was a central and indispensable element of ancient Egyptian civilization, shaping many aspects of the culture, economy, and daily life of the people who lived along its banks. From agriculture to transportation to religion, the Nile played a crucial role in the development and success of this remarkable civilization. Some text goes here. What were some of the most important religious beliefs and practices of the ancient Egyptians, and how did these beliefs influence the daily lives of ordinary people? Some text goes here. Religion was a central aspect of life in ancient Egypt, and the ancient Egyptians developed a complex system of beliefs and practices that influenced all aspects of their daily lives. Here are some of the most important religious beliefs and practices of the ancient Egyptians. 1. Polytheism. The ancient Egyptians believed in a pantheon of gods and goddesses, each of whom had their own roles and attributes. The gods were seen as powerful and benevolent beings who controlled different aspects of the natural world, and were worshipped and revered by the ancient Egyptians. 2. Afterlife. The ancient Egyptians believed in an afterlife, and believed that the souls of the deceased could be reborn into a new life after death. To prepare for this transition, the ancient Egyptians practiced mummification, preserved the bodies of the deceased, and buried them with grave goods and offerings that would be needed in the afterlife. 3. Temples. Temples were central to ancient Egyptian religious life, and were places of worship and ritual. Priests and priestesses were responsible for maintaining the temples and conducting religious ceremonies and offerings, which were seen as crucial for maintaining the favor of the gods. 4. Maat. Maat was a concept that was central to ancient Egyptian religion and culture, and was associated with ideas of truth, balance, and harmony. The ancient Egyptians believed that living a virtuous and just life, and upholding the principles of Maat, was key to achieving success and happiness in this life and the afterlife. 5. Festivals. Festivals were a key aspect of ancient Egyptian religious life, and were held throughout the year to honor different gods and goddesses. These festivals were marked by processions, offerings, and other forms of celebration, and were seen as a way of maintaining the connection between the gods and the people. Overall, religion was a central and deeply ingrained aspect of life in ancient Egypt, influencing everything from art and architecture to daily routines and social customs. The ancient Egyptians' religious beliefs and practices shaped their worldview, and played a crucial role in the development of their culture and society. Some text goes here. How did the ancient Egyptians build the pyramids, and what were some of the key architectural and engineering innovations that made these structures possible? Some text goes here. The construction of the pyramids in ancient Egypt remains one of the most impressive feats of engineering and architecture in human history. Here are some of the key techniques and innovations that allowed the ancient Egyptians to build these monumental structures. 1. Quarrying and transporting stones. The first step in building a pyramid was to quarry large blocks of limestone or granite from nearby quarries. These blocks, which could weigh up to 80 tons, were then transported to the construction site using sledges, rollers, and ramps. 2. Leveling the foundation. Once the stones had been transported to the construction site, the ancient Egyptians would level the foundation using a combination of sand, water, and wooden stakes. This ensured that the pyramid would be built on a stable base. 3. Creating the internal structure. The ancient Egyptians then built the internal structure of the pyramid using a series of interconnected chambers and passageways. This required a high degree of precision, as the passages had to be aligned precisely with the cardinal directions. 4. Constructing the outer casing. Once the internal structure was complete, the ancient Egyptians constructed the outer casing of the pyramid using large blocks of limestone or granite. These blocks were precisely cut and polished, and were fitted together so tightly that a knife blade could not be inserted between them. 5. Ramp systems. The construction of the pyramids also required the use of ramp systems, which were used to transport workers and materials to higher levels of the structure. These ramps were often built using mud bricks and were gradually dismantled as the pyramid was completed. Overall, the construction of the pyramids required a high degree of precision, planning, and organization, and required the collaboration of a large number of workers, architects, and engineers. The ancient Egyptians were skilled in many areas, including quarrying, transport, and construction, and their innovations in these fields allowed them to build some of the most impressive structures in human history. Some text goes here: what was life like for ordinary people in ancient Egypt, and how did social class and status impact people's daily experiences? Some text goes here. Life in ancient Egypt was highly structured and hierarchical, with different social classes and statuses playing a significant role in shaping the daily experiences of ordinary people. Here are some key aspects of life in ancient Egypt. 1. Social classes. Ancient Egyptian society was divided into different social classes, with the pharaoh at the top and peasants and slaves at the bottom. In between were a range of other classes, including priests, scribes, merchants, and craftsmen. 2. Agriculture. Agriculture was the foundation of the ancient Egyptian economy, and the majority of the population worked as farmers or laborers. Farmers worked on large estates or rented land from wealthy landowners, and were responsible for cultivating crops and providing food for the rest of society. 3. Family life. Family was highly valued in ancient Egyptian society, and the nuclear family was the basic unit of social organization. Women had important roles in the family, and were responsible for raising children and managing household affairs. 4. Education. Education was highly valued in ancient Egypt, and many boys and some girls received schooling in reading, writing, and mathematics. Scribes, who were responsible for keeping records and managing bureaucracy, were highly respected members of society. 5. Religion. Religion was central to daily life in ancient Egypt, and people of all social classes participated in religious rituals and ceremonies. Temples and priests played a central role in religious life, and offerings and sacrifices were made to the gods on a regular basis. Overall, life in ancient Egypt was highly structured and hierarchical, with social class and status playing a significant role in shaping people's daily experiences. While the majority of the population worked in agriculture, there were also opportunities for education, social mobility, and advancement within certain social classes. Religion and family were highly valued, and played important roles in shaping the culture and traditions of this remarkable civilization. What was the role of women in ancient Egyptian society, and how did their status and rights compare to those of men? Women played important roles in ancient Egyptian society, and while their rights and status were limited in some ways, they enjoyed greater social and legal rights than women in many other ancient civilizations. Here are some key aspects of the role of women in ancient Egypt. 1. Legal rights. Women in ancient Egypt had legal rights, including the right to own property, make contracts, and initiate divorce. Women could also serve as witnesses in court, and some women even held high-ranking positions within the government and the priesthood. 2. How did ancient Egyptian art and literature reflect the values and beliefs of the culture, and what are some of the most iconic examples of these artistic traditions? Ancient Egyptian art and literature provide valuable insights into the values and beliefs of this remarkable civilization, and are celebrated for their beauty, detail, and complexity. Here are some key ways in which ancient Egyptian art and literature reflected the culture of the time. 1. Religious themes. Ancient Egyptian art and literature were heavily influenced by religious beliefs and themes, and many works of art and literature depicted gods, goddesses, and religious rituals. Religion played a central role in ancient Egyptian culture, and this is reflected in many of the artistic traditions of the time. 2. Symbolism. Ancient Egyptian art was highly symbolic, and many images and objects had deep meaning and significance. Symbols such as the ankh, the eye of Horus, and the scarab beetle were used to represent important ideas and concepts, and were incorporated into many different types of art and architecture. 3. Commemoration of the dead. Ancient Egyptian art and literature were often created to commemorate the dead, and many works of art and literature were placed in tombs and burial sites. These works of art were intended to provide comfort and sustenance to the deceased in the afterlife, and often depicted scenes of the deceased engaging in activities that they enjoyed in life. 4. Emphasis on realism. Ancient Egyptian art was highly realistic, and artists were skilled in creating detailed and accurate representations of the natural world. Many works of art depicted people, animals, and landscapes with remarkable precision and attention to detail. 5. Emphasis on order and balance. Ancient Egyptian art and literature were characterized by a strong emphasis on order and balance, which reflected the importance of these values in ancient Egyptian culture. Many works of art featured symmetrical designs and patterns, and were carefully constructed to create a sense of harmony and balance. Some of the most iconic examples of ancient Egyptian art and literature include the pyramids and other monumental structures, the hieroglyphic writing system, the Book of the Dead, and the many sculptures, paintings, and other works of art that have survived from this remarkable civilization. These works of art and literature continue to captivate and inspire people around the world, providing a window into the rich and complex culture of ancient Egypt. Some text goes here. How did ancient Egypt's relationships with other civilizations, such as Greece and Rome, impact the region's culture and history? Some text goes here. Ancient Egypt's relationships with other civilizations, such as Greece and Rome, had a significant impact on the region's culture and history. Here are some key ways in which these relationships shaped ancient Egypt. 1. Cultural exchange. Ancient Egypt had extensive cultural contacts with other civilizations, including Greece and Rome. These contacts resulted in a rich exchange of ideas, technologies, and artistic traditions, and led to the development of new cultural forms and innovations. 2. Political influence. Ancient Egypt was also subject to the political influence of other civilizations, including Greece and Rome. This influence was most pronounced during the Ptolemaic period, when Egypt was ruled by the Greek Ptolemaic dynasty. During this period, Greek and Egyptian cultures were blended, and many new cultural and artistic traditions emerged. 3. Economic relations. Ancient Egypt's relationships with other civilizations also had important economic implications. For example, ancient Egypt's extensive trade networks allowed it to import goods from distant regions, including the Mediterranean and Asia, and to export its own products, such as grain, textiles, and gold. 4. Military conflict. Ancient Egypt's relationships with other civilizations were not always peaceful, and the region was frequently subject to military conflict and invasion. For example, ancient Egypt was conquered by Alexander the Great in 332 BCE, and was later incorporated into the Roman Empire. Overall, ancient Egypt's relationships with other civilizations had a profound impact on the region's culture, history, and identity. These relationships led to the development of new cultural forms and innovations, and helped to shape the unique blend of Greek, Egyptian, and Roman influences that characterize the Ptolemaic period. Some text goes here. What is the legacy of ancient Egypt today, and how has the culture and traditions of this ancient civilization influenced modern society? Some text goes here. The legacy of ancient Egypt is still felt today in a wide range of areas, from architecture and art to literature and philosophy. Here are some key ways in which the culture and traditions of ancient Egypt have influenced modern society. 1. Architecture. Ancient Egyptian architecture has had a profound impact on modern building design, particularly in the use of columns, symmetry, and monumental structures. The pyramids, temples, and other architectural achievements of ancient Egypt continue to inspire architects and builders around the world. 2. Art. Ancient Egyptian art, with its emphasis on realism, symbolism, and order, has had a lasting impact on Western art and aesthetics. Ancient Egyptian art has influenced everything from the design of jewelry and fashion to the creation of modern art and sculpture. 3. Science and technology. Ancient Egypt was a center of scientific and technological innovation, and made significant contributions in fields such as mathematics, medicine, and engineering. Many modern scientific and technological practices can be traced back to ancient Egypt, including the use of herbs and medicines for healing, the development of the calendar, and the use of irrigation systems for agriculture. 4. Literature and language. Ancient Egypt was home to one of the world's earliest writing systems, and many modern languages and writing systems have been influenced by Egyptian hieroglyphs. Ancient Egyptian literature, including works such as the Book of the Dead and the Hymn to the Aten, has also had a lasting impact on modern literature and philosophy. 5. Religion and mythology. Ancient Egyptian religion and mythology continue to capture the imaginations of people around the world, and have been the subject of countless books, films, and other works of art. The gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt, as well as the myths and legends associated with them, continue to fascinate and inspire people today. Overall, the legacy of ancient Egypt is far-reaching and multifaceted, with contributions in fields ranging from architecture and art to science and religion. The enduring influence of this ancient civilization is a testament to its remarkable achievements and the enduring power of its cultural and intellectual traditions. Some text goes here. What was the process of mummification in ancient Egypt, and why was it such an important cultural and religious practice? Some text goes here. Mummification was a complex and highly ritualized process in ancient Egypt that was used to preserve the bodies of the deceased for the afterlife. Here are the key steps involved in the process of mummification. 1. Body preparation. The body of the deceased was first washed with water from the Nile and then anointed with oils and resins. All of the internal organs were removed, except for the heart, which was considered to be the seat of the soul. 2. Dehydration. The body was then left to dry out for several days, either by natural means or through the use of a salt and natron mixture. This process helped to remove moisture from the body and prevent decay. 3. Wrapping. Once the body was fully dehydrated, it was wrapped in layers of linen bandages. Amulets and other protective talismans were often included in the wrapping to provide additional protection for the deceased in the afterlife. 4. Coffin placement. The wrapped body was then placed in a coffin or sarcophagus, which was often elaborately decorated with scenes and images related to the afterlife. Mummification was an important cultural and religious practice in ancient Egypt for several reasons. First, it was believed that the preservation of the body was essential for the deceased to successfully transition to the afterlife. The body was seen as a vessel for the soul, and it was thought that the soul needed to be able to recognize and be reunited with the body in order to achieve eternal life. In addition, mummification was also closely linked to religious beliefs and rituals surrounding death and the afterlife. Many of the rituals and practices associated with mummification were believed to have been handed down from the gods themselves, and were seen as integral to the successful transition of the deceased to the afterlife. Overall, mummification was a complex and highly ritualized practice in ancient Egypt that played a central role in the culture's beliefs and practices surrounding death and the afterlife. How did ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics work, and what were some of the most important texts and inscriptions that have been discovered from this era? Ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics were a writing system used by the Egyptians to communicate and record information. Here's how the hieroglyphics worked. 1. Symbols. Hieroglyphics consisted of a series of symbols, each of which represented a word, idea, or sound. The symbols were often pictorial, and many of them were based on the images of animals, people, or objects. 2. Writing direction. The hieroglyphics were typically written from right to left or from top to bottom, depending on the direction of the symbols. 3. Texts and inscriptions. Hieroglyphics were used to write a variety of texts and inscriptions, including religious texts, historical accounts, and administrative records. Many of these texts and inscriptions have been preserved on temple walls, tombs, and other ancient structures. Some of the most important texts and inscriptions that have been discovered from the ancient Egyptian era include: 1. The Book of the Dead. This collection of spells and incantations was intended to help guide the deceased through the afterlife. 2. The Rosetta Stone. This artifact, which was discovered in 1799, contained the same text written in 3 different scripts, including ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. It was instrumental in helping scholars decipher the hieroglyphic script. 3. The Karnak Temple inscriptions. These inscriptions, which were discovered on the walls of the Karnak Temple complex in Luxor, contain a wealth of information about the religious beliefs and practices of the ancient Egyptians. 4. The Turin King List. This document, which dates back to the 19th dynasty, contains a list of Egyptian kings and pharaohs, along with their reigns and accomplishments. Overall, hieroglyphics were a key part of ancient Egyptian culture and were used to record and preserve important information about the society, religion, and history of this remarkable civilization.